Hey everybody, hello and welcome to Draw With Me. I'm Danny Gregory. It's Thursday. We're going to do some drawing. I hope you're ready. First of all, how about those postcards? So last week we did something a little bit more random than normal, which was we just made postcards and hopefully you sent them to people. I made a postcard about my impending trip to Orlando using the Hahnemühle watercolor postcard kit that I had and fired it off when I got to Orlando to my wife to say that I wish that she was here. So hopefully you got your postcard made and shipped and maybe even got a response by now. It's really nice to send postcards because we kind of hardly ever do. It's nice to send postcards when you're not traveling as well. And it's particularly nice to make postcards yourself. And it's a really fun thing. So it seemed like a very varied response that people had, all different kinds of things, collages and calligraphy and watercolors of flowers and all kinds of stuff, maps. It was pretty cool. So I am back from my trip to Orlando, where I went to NAMTA, which is I don't know, I can never remember what it is, the North American something or other. We are waiting to see if it's going to arrive, Joe. Joe Domeyer, my buddy from Hahnemühle, we got to have dinner together in Orlando. I haven't seen Joe in ages. But we talked about, we never talked about art. We talked about hunting and fishing, of all things. But it was fun. It was nice to see. It was nice to see people. There were people there who I have corresponded with for ages and have never met in person, like many of you. And it was great to have this chance to be in one place and see each other. National Arts Material Trade Association. That's what it is. Rolls off the tongue, NAMTA. So it's this giant trade show, convention, conference, where all of the manufacturers of art supplies come together to show all the products that they make. And all the people who own art supply stores and museums, stores, and all those kinds of things all come there. I think there's even like giant stores like Walmart and Blick and people like that come there too. And they get to see what's new, what's on offer. And it's an annual event. There was somebody who I met there who'd been going there for 30 years. So that was pretty interesting. I've never been before. And I got to see a lot of cool stuff and talk to a lot of people about art supplies and talk about Sketchbook Skool and talk about Draw With Me, talk about you people and say, hey, can we have some stuff to give you? Just like we have been giving fantastic things from Hahnemühle. In fact, I saw somebody mention earlier that they had just gotten a whole nice package from Hahnemühle, including not just what they had asked for, but also additional stuff. So that was pretty cool. And thank you, Joe, for doing that. What else can I tell you? So it was also interesting just to travel. I looked through, I have an app that is where I kind of manage my travel. And it has a record. I've been using this app for 12 years and it has a record of all the trips I've taken over 12 years. And I looked at it on average, over the last 12 years, I took 10 to 12 trips a year. So, and they were all around the world because I was always traveling for when I was in advertising and when I was doing residencies in various schools. So just a lot of travel, like basically once a month I was going somewhere. This year, this was the very first trip that I took really anywhere. And I'm hoping to get back into the swing of things, but it was interesting to get back into like locking yourself into a window seat or an aisle seat and kind of figuring out what to do for the next 3 or 4 hours. obviously everybody was masked. They weren't particularly masked at NAMTA, but I don't know. I guess I'm not sure why that was. There were some people who were, but by and large, people weren't. Maybe because it was such a gigantic space, or maybe because it was Florida and Florida don't care. I don't know. But anyway, I felt good to be back in the swing of relative normalcy, and also I saw a lot of stuff. I don't have a huge. Here's the thing: I was sort of so overwhelmed by being there, and I was speaking on a panel about healing and art, which is something that was kind of new to a lot of people in this industry. They don't think of that aspect of wellness as a component in making art, that people are coming to make art not just because they want to get jobs as professional illustrators or designers or artists, or they're not just coming to draw with me. For instance, you guys don't just come to draw with me because you, I don't know, want to enter a local watercolor show and win a prize. No, we're making art because it feels good, because of how it makes us connect with reality, how we survive the pandemic, thanks to the healing aspects of art, the fact that it allows us to feel connected to the present. It allows us to appreciate beauty. It allows us to have a meditative qualities of being in the flow, all these other things that we do. It's just not really something that's been kind of baked into the art supply industry. So they often see things as the people are kind of in different levels of art, an art journey. Are you a beginner? Are you an intermediate? Are you advanced? That's kind of how they look at it. And I was trying to say to them, you know what? In a lot of cases, that just doesn't matter. We're less interested in progressing. I mean, we like to do better, but that's less of our purpose. And so when it comes to selling art supplies, their focus is often on really a lot of the qualities of the art supplies rather than just the effects of the art supplies. I know that sounds a little woo-woo, and we had a lot of conversations about it, like what does it actually mean to have healing as a component? But I think it applies to the packaging. It applies to the explanation. You could have somebody coming and buying art supplies and really never having used them before. And how can the packaging, if you come and there's 5,000 kinds of brushes, could they help us to navigate our way through it better? So yes, and as Afia 20 says, being in community with other artists, yes, finding ways to collaborate, finding ways to support each other, to encourage each other, doing things like Draw With Me, doing things like Sketchbook, Skool, Spark, all those kinds of things. We're doing stuff, So yes, that was my mission, as it has been my mission for a couple of decades since I discovered the healing power of art in my own life and how it helped me. So anyway, that was my mission. I got this. This is Zen the zebra. I got him from my friends at Zebra Pens. And this is their icon, their mascot. It's this little kind of meditative Zen zebra sitting in a lotus position, or is that the butterfly position? So that's a good sign. Maybe it's subconsciously getting in there, but Zebra's a Japanese company. Maybe they're more in touch with mindfulness. I don't know. But I know that I like what Lisa says, art supplies, hope in a tube or in a book, right? Mary says, I've been part of a healing arts group at a cancer center for 4 years. It's amazing to be with other survivors and create art. Absolutely. So good. Kimberly has also gotten benefit from Draw With Me, so that's great, and from YouTube. So I'm glad that that is the case. And speaking of healing, our Ukrainian art, what would you call it? Our art mission, or the mission to send art to Ukrainian refugees that we did a couple of weeks ago. The box has arrived in Poland. We have yet to find out what exactly is happening with it. I imagine it's going to be quite overwhelming. A huge box. I think it weighed 17 pounds with 1,000 pieces of art that are going to be given to refugees to give them, some love and to say, we care about you. Chris says an arc of art. Yes, I like that. So anyway, we will find out what effect it has and whether it got there. Well, and we know it got there. It did get there, which was nerve-wracking, honestly, packing up all that art. JJ and I were saying to each other, what if we lose it? But we didn't. So that was good. All right, so what I also wanted to talk about today was ears. Ears. We all have them. We all, hopefully, they're in reasonably working order. But they're an interesting thing when it comes to drawing. And I wanted to talk about them for a couple of reasons. One of which was, of course, that I was in Orlando, home of the eared one, right? Old Big Ears himself. See if I can draw him. Sort of roughly the way he kind of has sideburns, isn't he? Sort of like that. Old Mickey Mouse. Big flat ears. Mickey Mouse is like, no matter which way he's facing, his ears are never in profile. He's always got, his ears are always like this. So when he turns to the side, his ears remain that way. It's kind of a miraculous situation. Sort of roughly what he looks like, right? This looks like one of those off-brand Mickey. Yes, this is this is like one of those Mickeys that you get in, like if you travel to, I've seen them like in Mexico or India. It's sort of like the off-brand version of a Mickey. Anyway, but his ears, that's one of the things that was inspiring me to think about ears. I was also thinking about ears because had loss in my family in the last couple of weeks. My stepmother, who is my father's second wife, passed away. She was one of the leading psychologists of the deaf. So that means that she wrote and studied and counseled deaf families of deaf children in particular, studied them and studied the particular psychology of deaf people and how they learn language, what that means psychologically, whether they get cochlear implants that allow them to sort of hear, or that they use language. I don't know an awful lot about it, but she was a very nice woman. I didn't know her incredibly well. She lived in England with my father, but she is the mother of my 3 half-sisters, and I feel badly for them and their loss. She had been ill for some time, so it wasn't unexpected, but we lost, or they lost her. I feel a bit ambivalent, even though she was my stepmother. I didn't really know her that well, but anyway, I wanted to sort of pay tribute to her also by thinking about ears and their importance to us. Yes, Twiggy is there are no leaf blowers, I don't think, today, but she nonetheless is on alert. So, I noticed when I was doing this that this paper is completely filthy. And the reason is that I spent the morning before this sharpening pencils. I filled this entire thing with pencils, so my hands were completely covered with pencilania, pencil droppings. But so another thing about ears is, do you have a way of drawing them? Do you have a way of drawing ears? I think that here's an example. Like this is probably going to be familiar to you, which is this is, of course, the Draw With Me sort of poster. And you can see the ear that I drew. I draw this guy, every week. And I, do variations. This is when we went to Cambodia. I drew him like that. And this is him this week. But the original guys, you can see, like, it's just a sort of a backwards C is the way that I was drawing, just draw an ear like that, right? Or there's also, I might sort of draw something like that. I'm drawing that kind of a thing, right? Or you might get kind of more sort of snazzy, draw a bit of stuff in there like that, right? We all have our kind of our way of drawing ears. That's sort of the cartoony way. Yeah, that's the quick way I would draw them. Sorry about this annoying animal out there. Anyway, so that's sort of a quick way of drawing ears. But as Thistle says, I usually try to cover ears with hair or a hat. Why? Because maybe you don't know how to draw ears. So we're going to spend a bit of time talking about that and looking at ears, which is something we don't really do. Ears, ears are mildly repulsive, to be honest. I don't think we particularly love looking at people's ears. They seem mildly unsanitary. I don't know. We hang stuff off our ears, though, right? We put on earrings and multiple earrings and jewels and chains and all kinds of stuff with our ears, but the ears themselves, not so sure. So yeah, they're strange. We don't see them. We can't see our own ears. And when we talk to people, you don't really look at your ears. I mean, you can sort of see them. But the thing about drawing them is I think what I want to do is, oh my God, that animal needs to be severely disciplined. Yes, but the thing about drawing ears is it's an opportunity to draw something unfamiliar and to think about what are our preconceptions and, what are we getting wrong because we're using our imaginations rather than our eyeballs to draw them. So it's a good exercise in observation. Okay, let's put it that way. So to start with, here's what I want you to do. I want you to take your camera. I'm sure you have a camera with you. Take your camera. Turn on, your phone. Take your phone, right? And take your camera and just hold it up to your ear and take a couple pictures. That's a rule, by the way. If you're going to use your phone as a camera, never take just one picture. Always take 10 pictures. You can always delete them, but don't just take one. There's never a reason to just take one. It doesn't cost you any money. It's not going to break anything, but take lots of them. And then you can look at them and go, okay, most of these suck. This one is the best one. So take that picture of your ear. Maybe take a picture of both ears. I did this earlier, and I have to say, my ears are different from each other. And today, I don't want you to draw my ears. I want you to draw your own. So I'm quite serious. I'm going to I'm going to continue to procrastinate and to kill time while you get your phone and take your picture of your ear. And then you will have it on your phone and you will be drawing from your phone. Okay? If you don't have a phone, and maybe you have a mirror, okay, and you can angle it in such a way that you can look at it. But really, when I did my ears, yeah, as Melissa's discovering the same thing, my ears were radically different from each other. I was horrified at differently they look. Ash, how could you have drawn mine already? We've yet to begin. So, you don't have to show the picture to anybody. So don't worry about that part of it. But we're going to focus on these. Okay. So, and I want to take some time doing this. I want us to really think about it. All right, and I'm going to teach you some stuff about the anatomy of ears that will be interesting because I did a little bit of research about it. So, yes, it's horrifying. I know. It's weird. Suzanne makes a good point, which is our ears are as unique as our fingerprints. Did you know that? That's a way that they identify criminals or other ways that they can do ID is the configuration of your ears is unique in all of us. I have no idea why that is, any more than I have any idea why our thumbprints are different. But that is a fact. Everybody's ears are different. So if you draw mine, I will know that you drew mine. You're violating my ear trademark. Or is it a copyright? No, it's a trademark. These ears have been registered with the Trade Commission, and they are not to be drawn by anybody but me. I have the right from the owner to draw my ears. But if you draw my ears, my lawyers, and they're vicious, will be after you. Okay, Sandra has hearing aids stuck in her ears. Well, that's fine. Draw them. That could be part of what you draw. That could be part of your understanding. So that's okay. Or if you want to take one out and just listen to me with the other ear, or don't listen to me at all and just draw your ears. Whatever you want to do. It's cool. It's fine. We're going to do this together. Okay, so here we go. I got my paper and I'm going to show you my ear. Here we go. There it is. So that's my ear. That's my personal ear. And I'm thinking, seeing as I spent the morning sharpening all these colored pencils, that that's what I'm going to use to draw with. And so let me just start with like a brownish color. And I want to really go slowly. Like my temptation is to draw the contour, but I think I may not draw the whole contour. I may just focus on this top part first. But, you know, again, I'm already discovering things that are interesting, like this whole kind of piece here. It's like a piece of cartilage, I guess. So I want to just really go slowly to really try and navigate it, because it's interesting, because like there's a crease and then that crease kind of disappears. Right? And it comes down to about here, and then this part that is a deeper hole comes down there. I don't know what the purpose of any of these things are. I don't know if we have any ear, nose, and throat specialists in the house who could maybe tell us, what is there any known function for all these flaps? Is it just some sort of thing that evolved that way with no particular purpose? Does it move sound in? I imagine part of its purpose of these flaps is to stop stuff from coming in, or to hear a really annoying dog barking endlessly in the hallway. Yeah, unfortunately, JJ isn't here today. She's not in the house right now, so that's why this horrible animal is making such a fuss. But again, this looks very unfamiliar to me. This thing that's attached to the side of my head has been there my whole life, and yet I don't know it. We can think about our body parts as an interesting subject for drawing. Like, what other parts could you draw? Your feet. And I've often thought about drawing feet here on Draw With Me because I've drawn my feet a lot of times. But I think people find it kind of repulsive. Particularly to look at men's feet, particularly old men like me. It's horrifying. Nobody wants to see that. You see how there's so many shapes and indentations, things like that. It's really quite interesting. A lot of opportunity for adding tone. And I'm thinking, as I said, I want to spend some time doing this, and I'm thinking that I'm probably going to layer my colored pencil. So right now I'm just doing this dark brown, or what color is this? Saddle brown. But I'm also realizing that shorthand that I showed you before, that shorthand, which is sort of this thing, it's vaguely correct. There's this sort of like little indentation here, which you can sort of see here, but it's much more subtle than I've always thought to make it. I think I probably learned to draw ears that way from, I don't know, someone like R. Crumb or some cartoonist. They had like a shorthand way of doing it that I just kind of copied, but it wasn't really from observation. Think about it. Even if you go to life drawing class, you don't draw ears. You don't get into, and this is interesting. So this part comes down here, and then in here, there's this whole other. This is like the canal that leads into your head. It kind of arcs back. So it's sort of almost like drawing a map or something, a topographic map, really trying to look at this landscape and understand it. This is sort of like a little cave going inside of a mountain or something, but you could use really topographical techniques for the way that you would draw a landscape, draw a map. And then down here, the lobe. You think of the lobe as being kind of a pendulous thing from the bottom. Maybe in some people it is. Everybody's ears are different. But in my case, they're just part of the same thing. It's part of the same little, like, shaped like a handle, like a mug handle almost. They're those things, what are they called? Toby jugs. Toby jugs that are those English kind of beer mugs that are shaped like a head. And they have, I think, right? They have the handles of the jug are the ears. Okay, I think I got a lot of these parts. I'm reasonably happy with this. I'm actually more happy than I thought I would be. So just merrily cross-hatching. I mean, cross-hatching, as I'm sure I've said to you 1,000 times before, is one of life's great pleasures. And but it is also easy here, by the way, to get lost and to think that you're going down one road and suddenly realize, oh no, I've actually kind of screwed this up. So take your time. Be sure you are not getting carried away, getting lost. I think your ears, isn't there something about your ears keep getting bigger as you get older? Like your ears and your nose continue to grow. That's why you always see old people with giant noses and giant ears. I do remember that about my grandparents. My grandfather had a big nose in the first place, but it continued, it would seem to get bigger and bigger over time. I'm not sure why that would be. What would be the purpose of that? Not many things grow, except in my case, one's stomach. Throughout life, usually you shrink. You get smaller and kind of pulled down by gravity, but maybe that's something. Maybe it's because, and the weird thing is, as you get older, you hear less and less well. So you have these bigger and bigger ears that work less and less well. What's up with that? Who came up with that idea? Oh, Creatrix Artworks. I am reading your chat. I am fully engaged with you. I can talk, I can draw, I can look at my ears, and I can read chat all at the same time. I can also pat my tummy and rub my head all at the same time. It's an incredibly useful skill. The leaf blower. Enter the leaf blower. I hope you can't hear it. Hope you're too busy. So this is another thing that happens, speaking of ears and drawing, is that when you draw, if you're really focused on it, you don't hear as much. Your brain sort of pays less and less attention to that input. I don't know if it's because it's like all the data is coming from your eyeballs, but a lot of times you can have that experience. Somebody's talking to you and you suddenly realize, oh wait, sorry, I was lost in drawing, lost in thought, lost in reading something, and I just didn't hear it. Betsy has some information here. The cartilage serves the purpose of keeping the ear up and somewhat against the head, so it's a structural scaffold. Without it, we look like Cocker Spaniels. So our ears would just kind of flop down, like what's that character in Harry Potter? Dombey. The house elf has ears like that. They just kind of hang down like a Cocker Spaniel. So yeah, if you're working with colored pencils, maybe you too are also layering them like I am. Noticing that this area is kind of a yellowish color, which is unappetizing. But yeah. Dobby, right? Dobby, yes, I'm sorry. It's been a while. Well, my son and his girlfriend just decided to watch all the Harry Potter movies. I was never a huge fan of those movies. I like the books quite a lot, but I always felt like my imagined version of it all was sufficient. I didn't see the movie that won Best Picture. What? It did win Best Picture, right? The movie that's about the family of... Is it Children of Deaf Adults? CODA? Yeah, I didn't see it. I think it's partly because there was a movie the year before about a deaf person, a deaf musician that I'd really liked. I'm not sure why that's not really the reason I didn't see this movie, but felt like there was quite a lot of deaf movies going on. I don't think my stepmother got to see that movie. But I don't know. She might have. Probably would have been interesting to her. Yeah, Sound of Metal. That was the movie that Fran mentioned. Yeah, Sound of Metal. I did like that movie. Although the strange thing is that artist, the actor in that movie, has just produced another movie that he's also starring in, which is about a different kind of musician who's deaf. I don't know if you found that theme so interesting. Beethoven movie. That's true. That's true. Beethoven. Probably one of the more famous deaf people. Have I seen the Harry Potter books illustrated by Jim Kay? No. I remember those original illustrations that were in the Harry Potter books many years ago. Do you remember those? Those were quite good. I think they were different in America than they were in England. All right, so that's reasonable. I think there's some areas I didn't get quite right, like this line should have gone probably more back, and this area is too large, but that's okay, because there's another thing I wanted to do with this idea, the next part that I wanted to explore. I wanted to explore this anatomy. This could be quite interesting. So this is a diagram of these parts of the ear each have names. It's kind of insane, right? It's kind of insane that every single twist and turn, every little flap and structure has a name. So this one is called the helix. Okay. But then this thing here, inside here, is called the triangular fossa. Okay. But it gets stranger. So this part, I guess it's this, and they're using two lines there, but I'm not going to use two lines. I don't like the look of it. But this is called the anti-helix crura. I guess it doesn't like the helix. I am anti-helix crura. So all these parts have names, which would suggest that they have functions, because why did anybody bother to name them all? And then there's this one here, which is called Simba, not the white lion. Remember Simba the white lion? And then this is called cavum, which makes sense, cavum, the cave. Bats fly out of there. And then this thing is called the tragus. This part right here, the tragus. I think that's the part that some people have pierced, the tragus. And then there's this part here that's called the antitragus. A lot of conflict here in the ear. I am anti-tragus. Well, I'm pro-tragus. All right, and then this, my favorite, okay? This part down here is called the intertragic notch. The intertragic notch. Come on, that is awesome, isn't it? The intertragic. It sounds like an Edward Gorey book. And then, of course, the lobule. It's kind of gross. I don't like a lobule. It sounds like globule. It sounds like something like sputum or something. Okay, so now the antihelial, and then there's the scaphoid fossa, which is this part here. So you're going to have to find all these parts on your ear, because they'd all look slightly different, right? Scaphoid fossa. Not to be confused with the triangular fossa. It's the scaphoid fossa. All right. Let me make me a bit smaller. And is there more? Have I gotten... Oh, yes, the helix crus. Did I get that yet? No, I did not. So the helix crus is this kind of little bridge here. The helix crus. So here's the cool thing is, by noting these structures are in all ears. Every ear has these things. So if you're drawing an ear, it isn't just... so Sorabai says that fossa means a depression. Why the long face? I have a fossa. I'm deeply into a fossa. So, okay, so the fossa, triangular fossa, that's a depression. That's a fossa. And that's a fossa. So these depressions are the fossa. And then there's these... What's the crura then? And what's the... Because here's the crus, and then there's a crura. And then there's the tragus and the antitragus. So the tragus is this part above, and then the antitragus is leading. Where's the antitragus? Tragus is this thing coming down. Okay, so that's the antitragus, and then that's the tragus, which would appear to be the same thing. It would seem like they're the same thing, but they're not. Anyway, so lots of different parts. But the point is, even if we don't really understand these things, it's good to know that they are specific things. So we're not just kind of drawing some kind of little squiggle, but we're actually thinking about each of these things. It's kind of like if you were drawing a hand, you would want to make sure that you had 5 fingers, that they had nails, that they had knuckles, that you had a thumb, you had a palm, because we were really familiar with all of those structures in our hand, but we're completely oblivious to the ones in our ear. The intertragic notch. Cynthia is fascinated by that. Yeah. So now we know. So if you sit down to do a drawing, you can say, make sure you've got the antihelix crura and the scaphoid fossa all nailed. Right? Interesting. Oh, these are also, the cavum and the simba are both concha. I'm not even sure what that is or how to deal with it. And then what does oracle mean? Oracle. Not sure. I'm gonna leave it at that. I may be leaving stuff out, but there we go. Jennifer says she doesn't have all of this. Yes, you do. They're just they're differently shaped in you. Either that or your pillow is too hard. Could be. Hard pillow, squishing your ear flat, all the structures are gone. You just have like 2 pancakes on either side of your head. Could be. Oracle's whole sound hole. Could be. Sound hole. I prefer oracle to sound hole. Hey, clean out your sound holes. So, all right, well, that was pretty cool. that is the shape of our ears. And like many things, say you were going to draw a car engine. You pop the hood, and there's the car engine laid out before you. Unless you have a Tesla, in which case it's just a frunk. But theoretically, there it is. And then you look at all those parts and you'd say, this is an overwhelming rat's nest of confusion. What am I supposed to do with it? Well, if you were a car mechanic, you would know what each of those things were. But even if you weren't, you can study them and start to figure out, what are these things? Just because they're unfamiliar doesn't mean they have to be an undifferentiated mass. And that's really what we want to get to when we're using drawing to explore things, is to try to understand them. So by breaking it down and by saying, okay, let me see if I can get what these things are, you're going to do a better drawing of them. Just like this drawing that I just did of this ear, I spent time doing it, and I thought about it, and I'd really tried to get all the bits together. I've never drawn my ear before, but it came out reasonably well because of that, because I now know that there's a triangular fossa and a tragic notch. Now, you're not going to medical school, so you don't have to memorize any of those things, but the point is they're in there, and by breaking them down, by understanding them, by seeing what the bits are, you can put them together into a more coherent way. So, too often we gloss over these differentiations and we just sort of assume that we kind of vaguely know what they are, and they just kind of... But when you spend time drawing them, similarly, if you drew a building, for instance, you would start to see how that building was constructed and how it was put together and what the purpose of these different things were and what the relative proportions were based on their function. So you don't want to overthink it, and you don't want to start measuring it with rulers and things like that. That's not the point of it. But it is to have understanding and to use drawing to understand, and to use understanding to improve your drawing. So I hope that is useful to you, is an interesting way of looking at it. And Sorobai's going to draw in the fields. Why don't you draw other bits of your anatomy too? Anyway, I'm glad that you joined me to do this today. And in our tribute to Susan Gregory and Michael Mouse, our two muses for the day. Let's see what else we have to talk about now. Well, I just wanted to remind you of a couple of other things, which is, hopefully you by now subscribe to my essays. Every Friday I write an essay. If you sign up, I'll also give you a little book that I've made. I should probably write about this idea of understanding and how it affects drawing. That could be an interesting topic. Maybe I'll write about that this week. We'll see. The Art for All podcast. I see that we also have put the link to it here in the chat. Art for All is my podcast with John Muir-Laws, who would be a great person to talk to about this. I should send him this drawing of mine and just say, oh, what do you think? Because John Muir-Laws is a biologist as well as an artist, and we talk about all kinds of things. We've covered many different subjects. Some are about science, some are about art supplies, some are about our imagination, some are about psychology. So yeah, there are different things that we talk about every Monday here on YouTube, as well as in your ears when we make our podcast that you can just listen to. Or if you need your eyeballs to cooperate, you can come to YouTube and watch us talk. I want to see your ears, so make sure that you share them on social media. #SBSDrawWithMe. Just put them anywhere on Instagram or on Facebook. Share them. Share your ears. Please do. And put #SBSDrawWithMe. And if you're a member of the Schoolyard, Sketchbook Schoolyard, please put them there. And that will be easy to find. I'm glad that Jen's Soundhole loves the podcast. That's good. Mine too. I was listening to it a couple days ago, and I've taken to listening to it. It's been a long time not listening to the podcast, having done it. You know how that is. You make something and you're like done with it, but no, I actually quite like it. quite like listening to our conversation after we've had it. So I'm glad that you like it too. And of course, subscribe to this channel. I shouldn't have to tell you that because I know that you like it. You've stayed here till now. So subscribe to it. Give me the thumbs up. Tell your friends to come and draw with us. Bring a friend next time. Don't do this alone. Drawing is a dangerous, solitary activity. It can lead to extremely unsavory behavior. Sitting alone by yourself, laboring over a sketch pad. It's not good. You should get out there, play with your friends, get into the sunshine, make stuff with others. And failing that, at least show somebody else your ear. Or say to somebody, can I draw your ear? And they will look at you with fear and loathing. But try it. Try it in public. It's a great icebreaker. Go up to somebody on public transport and say, excuse me, would you take your hat off? I'd like to draw your ear. You could have some very interesting experiences that I look forward to hearing about. We'll see what happens. All right. Thanks for joining me. And I'll see you possibly on Monday when we do Art for All. Possibly on Thursday next week when we draw together again. Possibly, I don't know, on a bus or a subway train when you come up to me and say, I want to draw your ear. And I'll say, you know what? No. You can see it on YouTube.